Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So the last update about Unfortunate Love was how Lakshmi finally returned to the Oberoi house, but she returned in order to give seat to Rishi and Malishka for their upcoming marriage. And Malishka got angry seeing Lakshmi at first, but Rishi get emotional. So let's continue from there. Lakshmi is leaving from the Oberoi mansion after bringing sweet for Rishi and Malishka for their marriage announcement. Neelam stops Lakshmi and tells Lakshmi that she did not tell her this till now, but today I will talk, and says thank you for bringing sweet for my son's marriage, and everyone is shocked that Neelam appreciates Lakshmi. Lakshmi fold her hand to Neelam and she is about to leave, but Virendra calls Lakshmi and tells her that his son is getting married, and he asks Lakshmi to do the arrangement, just like she has arranged for Neelam and his anniversary. Grandma says even for grandfather's birthday as well, and she asks Lakshmi to take up Rishi's marriage responsibility, and then she can leave after the marriage. Neelam says to Grandma and Virendra that professionals will do all the arrangement, and says this is not a puja or a birthday, this is my son's marriage. We don't need Lakshmi for the work. Malishka says of course. Grandma says professionals cannot get the marriage done with all the rituals and love, and says we want this for our son, and Ayush says of course. Grandma asks Lakshmi to stay in their house till Rishi's marriage, and after Rishi's marriage, then she can leave. Virendra says yes. Lakshmi thanks Grandma and says she cannot stay back because she has a job to do. Virendra says I will talk to your boss to give you leave from work, and says your work is not an excuse. Karishma says that it seems like Lakshmi came here to stay back. Lakshmi says I want to end everyone's hope of return, so I cannot stay back. Grandma says you want to end my hope too. Neelam says to Grandma that whatever you want cannot happen. Virendra says we want Lakshmi till the marriage. Malishka gets upset and thinks that nobody is asking me what I want, and she thinks that she wants them to kick Lakshmi out of the house forever. Ayush says we all want this marriage to be grand and big, and he asks Rishi to talk and says do you have any problem if Lakshmi stay back? Rishi says I don't have any problem, and says if we give the responsibility to a family member who is responsible rather than a professional, then it is good, and says I am happy if Lakshmi does the arrangement. Ayush says if Rishi is happy that Lakshmi should stay back, then Malishka would also be happy too. He whispers to Malishka that Malishka will become a villain in Rishi's eyes if she refuses, and Ayush asks Malishka to say that she is happy. Karishma says Malishka would never want Lakshmi to do the arrangement. Malishka thinks of what to do because if she says no, then Rishi will get angry, so she tells them that they should let them do what the elders decide. Ayush made fun of Malishka and says that Malishka has her values, and says that elders have different decisions, and he asks her to help them out by saying yes or no. Malishka says I will support Rishi's decision because my happiness lies in Rishi's happiness. Ayush says we hope that this is true and you can keep Rishi happy, and Malishka gets upset with Ayush. Grandma asks Lakshmi to do Rishi and Malishka's marriage arrangement because it is now decided, which means that Lakshmi will stay in the house until the marriage is done. Lakshmi says Grandma. Grandma asks Lakshmi to accept her sayings, else she will fold her hands, but Lakshmi stops her and asks her not to do this. Virendra asks Lakshmi if her decision is bigger than their wish, and he asks her to stay back for them. Lakshmi says okay, and says I will not stop today because I have to go to work today, but I will come back tomorrow. Virendra says we will come over and take you. Lakshmi says I will come by myself. Grandma asks Lakshmi to swear on her that she will come, and Lakshmi says that she will come. Malishka gets upset and thinks that Neelam and Karishma will punish me now for accepting to let Lakshmi stay back here, and I will give the same punishment to Ayush. Rishi is happy and Lakshmi goes. Karishma thinks that sister-in-law Neelam will leave from the house if Lakshmi returns, and she thinks that Lakshmi is really unlucky. Lakshmi is going to the jewelry store where she works, and she calls Shalu. Shalu asks if she has stayed back at the Oberoi house. Lakshmi says yes, and then tells her that she is going to her job today, and says that she will come home and tell them everything, and she ends the call. Bani says to Shalu that Ayush told them that everything is fine, but Lakshmi did not stay back, and they get upset. Karishma asks Virendra why he is giving chance to Lakshmi again. She says this house and Rishi will land in trouble due to Lakshmi. Grandma asks that what trouble, and who is putting us in trouble? Is it Lakshmi? Grandma says Lakshmi keeps the trouble away from Rishi and from us, and she doesn't care for her life, and she has proved this again and again. Neelam says to Grandma that you are saying that Lakshmi is taking Rishi out of trouble, but the troubles are coming into Rishi's life due to Lakshmi. Neelam asks Grandma not to call Lakshmi again and not to go against her word. Grandma says if I had gone against you, then I wouldn't have let Lakshmi divorce and leave from here. She says we had forced Lakshmi to leave and says when we wanted Lakshmi to stay here, we called her, and when our selfish motive is fulfilled, then we want her to leave again. Grandma says to Neelam that Lakshmi is so selfless and she used to think about others, and that is why she was marrying Vikrant, who turns out to be a despicable man. Rishi asks Grandma that what do you mean? He asks if Lakshmi did not want to do the marriage with Vikrant in reality. Grandma says no, Lakshmi did not want to marry Vikrant, but she agreed for everyone's sake. Grandma asks Rishi that how much do you trust Lakshmi? Rishi says I trust Lakshmi more than myself. Grandma says even Lakshmi trusts you more than herself and says if you had asked Lakshmi to stop her breath, then she would stop it without thinking about herself because she would immediately think that you said it for her betterment. Grandma says to Rishi that Lakshmi trusts you a lot. Malishka says don't say anything, Grandma, and she asks that why did Lakshmi agree to marry Vikrant and says Lakshmi agreed to marry Vikrant only because Vikrant had everything that Rishi has, and that is why Lakshmi wanted to take all that from Vikrant, and that was why she got ready to marry Vikrant. So Lakshmi is not great like everyone is thinking. Grandma says to Malishka that you know Lakshmi so well and says Lakshmi trusted Rishi when he told her for the first time to marry Vikrant and says Lakshmi had known Vikrant that he is not a good person, but she agreed to marry him because Rishi told her to, and she knew that Rishi would never lie to her. Rishi says to Grandma that if Lakshmi knows that Vikrant was a bad man, then why was she getting married to him? What if I did not come there on time and then she would have married him? Grandma says Lakshmi decided to marry Vikrant for us so that Neelam and your relationship doesn't get destroyed and so that Malishka doesn't get insecure. Rishi says to Grandma that so Lakshmi was going to ruin her own life for us. Grandma says yes and says Lakshmi trusted you that Vikrant was a bad person, but also she was marrying Vikrant for the peace to reign in the house. Karishma says what are you saying, Mom? And says Lakshmi was marrying for us. Grandma says this is the truth, but Karishma says the truth is that Lakshmi doesn't want to marry and that is why she did not get married. Virendra says to Karishma that I know Lakshmi very well and she was marrying for us. Karishma says Rishi was doing everything on Lakshmi's signal. Virendra asks that do you hear what you said? He says on the marriage day, Lakshmi was restless and she told us that Rishi is in danger and she pleaded with us to let her go to save Rishi. And when Vikrant told Lakshmi that they will search for Rishi after the marriage, then Lakshmi agreed to marry Vikrant just to save Rishi. Rishi gets emotional and he has teary eyes to hear that Lakshmi was ready to stop her marriage in order to come and save him, and he goes away from there. Ayush is about to go behind Rishi, but Malishka stops Ayush and tells him that he is Lakshmi's puppet and that is why only she will go to Rishi, and she goes behind Rishi. Grandma tells everyone that Rishi has understood what Lakshmi has done for us and says even Lakshmi had believed that Rishi was saying the truth about Vikrant, but this house rules is that they always wanted proof for everything, and that was why I was silent, because I cannot make you all understand. Karishma says to Grandma that you are pushing Rishi to Lakshmi and you are doing wrong, and says we are trying to keep Rishi away from Lakshmi, but you are pushing him to her. Grandma says what do you mean? She says you force your decision on others and you imagine whatever has not happened. Neelam says this is the truth. That girl called Lakshmi is very clever, but how will I make you all understand? Neelam tells Grandma and others that Lakshmi is very clever. Grandma says if Lakshmi was clever, then she would have ruled in this house and she would have ordered you all like she wanted, and she wouldn't have let you all push her around like this. Grandma says Rishi was not divorcing Lakshmi, but Lakshmi took divorce and she went away even when Virendra, I and Ayush were supporting her. Grandma says to Neelam that if Lakshmi was clever like you said, then Lakshmi wouldn't have left the house and went away from here, and instead, Lakshmi would have taken over everything with her cleverness and she would have ruled over everyone, and Neelam looks on in shock. Rishi thinks of Grandma and Virendra's word that Lakshmi was telling them that Rishi was in danger and she wanted to go and save him during a marriage with Vikrant, and a regret for scolding Lakshmi very much and saying anything without thinking how Lakshmi had felt. But Lakshmi forgave him always, and he asked himself that what did I do? Downstairs, Grandma asks Neelam if she has an answer for her question. Virendra says everything was in Lakshmi's hand, but Lakshmi went away like a winner and says this is the good values and sacrifice. He asks Neelam if she will say that Lakshmi was pretending even after doing so much for them. Neelam says to Virendra that you are breaking the house peace by giving too much value to Lakshmi. Virendra asks, what are you saying? That we are breaking this house. Grandma says Lakshmi will come into this house and this is my decision. Neelam goes away from there upset, and Karishma asks Grandma to think about it again and says if Lakshmi comes here, then this house will break. Malishka comes to Rishi's room and sees him crying. She thinks that Rishi is crying like an emotional fool. She says she got a chance and she asks Rishi not to be guilty and he should think that he has saved Lakshmi's life and he did not let anything wrong happen with her. She asks Rishi to close that chapter and says Lakshmi is your past. Rishi says to Malishka that I regret that I did not trust Lakshmi. I thought that Lakshmi did not trust me about Vikrant's matter, but I am wrong. Malishka asks Rishi to let Lakshmi be the past and let her move on, and says let Lakshmi stay in the past for your happiness, and says I love you so much. She asks Rishi to remember that Lakshmi will be here for few days, but I will be here forever. Malishka says to Rishi that after our marriage, then Lakshmi will leave and you will let her go, and she asks if Rishi understands. Rishi says Malishka please, and Malishka goes away from there. Karishma tells Grandma that Neelam's sister-in-law told her that if Lakshmi comes here, then Neelam will leave this house. But Rishi did not bring Lakshmi, but today you are calling Lakshmi back and sister-in-law will leave the house. Lakshmi gets down on the way from the auto. The auto driver tells her that his wife is unwell and that is why he is leaving her midway. Lakshmi says no problem and says it is good that your wife called you before. She gets down and she started walking on the road thinking about Rishi's marriage. Sonal is in the car and she thinks that she is Lakshmi, Malishka's enemy, and she thinks that Malishka told her everything. She says they have done so much, but Lakshmi is not living from Malishka's life. Sonal is about to hit Lakshmi with her car, but she stops as Lakshmi turns to the car. Sonal gets down from the car and she started confronting Lakshmi, asking if Lakshmi wanted to die in front of her car. She then asks if Lakshmi is going for work, and then she asks that when will Lakshmi leave from Malishka's life. She says she will not go back to the Obrey house. Lakshmi asks, who are you? She says if the family members of Malishka tells me all this, then it is understandable, but you have no right to tell me anything. Lakshmi says to Sonal that she herself doesn't want to go back to the Obrey house, but she is going back due to Grandma, and Sonal gets angry. Karishma tells Virendra and Grandma that Lakshmi is inauspicious and says when you people care for Lakshmi, then why will sister-in-law Neelam stay here? Grandma says to Karishma that Lakshmi is not inauspicious. Karishma asks if that cheap Lakshmi is important than sister-in-law Neelam. Grandma says enough and she turns to go, and Karishma asks if Grandma will go to convince sister-in-law Neelam. Grandma says no and says she knows what to do. Karishma says Lakshmi has done black magic on her and she asks Virendra to go and stop Neelam. Karishma asks Virendra if he will take Lakshmi's side as well and if he will let Neelam leave the house because of Lakshmi. Virendra goes to Neelam along with Karishma and Ayush and they ask her to stop thinking of leaving the house. Neelam asks if they are stopping her and says, what are you doing? Virendra says to Neelam that Lakshmi is coming back to the house for Rishi's marriage. Neelam asks who is Rishi and says Rishi is our son and says why is that enemy coming here and says yes, Lakshmi is my enemy. Virendra says enemy? Neelam says yes, Lakshmi is enemy because she will destroy the house. She says this is the proof that you don't listen to me and you are arguing with me. Neelam asks Virendra that has anyone ever seen us fighting like this before and says since that inauspicious girl came here, we started fighting. She says Grandma and you ask Lakshmi to come back here and this Ayush went to bring Lakshmi as your messenger. Virendra says you are an elder of this house and we all love and respect you and he asks her not to think like this. Neelam says to Virendra that you all love and respect me, then why is that girl coming here whom I dislike so much? Virendra says Lakshmi is coming here for Rishi's marriage. Neelam says if I call the person home whom you dislike, then how will you feel? And says there is no result of this argument. Virendra asks Neelam to agree with them. Neelam says that inauspicious girl has eclipsed you and my relationship. Now you don't need to say anything. I got your answer. We will close this argument right here. Ayush asks if Neelam will not leave the house again. Neelam says when Lakshmi comes here, then everyone will get the answer. Virendra says the matter is still stuck. Neelam says you should throw Lakshmi out from here and let peace reign. Karishma says I will tell Lakshmi that if she comes here, then you will leave the house. Neelam says nobody will tell Lakshmi and says that Lakshmi deserves just hatred and says I will not stay here due to Lakshmi's favor and I will stay here for my family and love, and which I will see tomorrow when Lakshmi comes here. Neelam says to Karishma that I will stay back if my loved ones throw Lakshmi out, and she tells Virendra that he should not let Lakshmi come inside the house. She says, I said my decision. Rishi, Ayush and Grandma are taking their decisions too, but it is up to you to decide if you will throw Lakshmi out of this house or if I should leave this house. Rishi thinks that Lakshmi is incredible and I have never seen such a girl in my life and I have lost such a good girl. He says we were husband and wife and we had promised each other, but I made Lakshmi go far from me. Ayush comes there being worried and he tells Rishi that Neelam auntie told them that if Lakshmi come back here, then she will leave the house, and Rishi is shocked. Rishi says to Ayush that he will talk to mom and he goes. Ayush says there is a tension and he asks that what should they do. Shalu calls Ayush and asks him about Lakshmi. Ayush says Lakshmi's sister-in-law told us that she will come back here tomorrow. Shalu thanks Ayush repeatedly. Ayush thinks if he should tell Shalu about Neelam's decision and he thinks that I should not tell her now. Shalu asks Ayush that why is he not saying anything. Ayush says the network is down. Shalu thanks God and says that she will make our. Bani says I will make it. Shalu says their sister is going back to the Obre house tomorrow and it is brother-in-law and Malishka's engagement too because Neelam wanted the engagement to happen again. Bani says let's see what destiny does and they wish that everything will be fine. Okay guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like the video, share it, and I will see you all again in my next video. Bye guys.